Chapter 1 Every Case Scenario. In Troy, there was a man named Paris. One day, he entered a home near a farm, looking beaten and worn, but he did not stop. The Trojan kept walking until he reached a rectangular table with a seat at each point. There, he ungracefully sat down. After a few minutes, he heard more staggering footsteps. Another man, who Paris was identical to, walked in and sat diagonal across from him. After another few minutes, a third man did the same. He looked exactly like the others. The trio sat in silence. Then the first man spoke. "So, how did our plan go?" The second man rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. "Maybe we should say how each of us did individually. You could start," the third man said, gesturing to the first speaker. He nodded, but embarrassment flashed over his face. "I can do that." I'll set the scene. 10 years earlier, a healthy-looking young man was in the middle of hunting in the forest when he suddenly stopped. He sensed someone behind him. 3 individuals, actually. Large shadows were cast, and he stared at them fearfully. "Paris!" a voice called. He jumped and turned, holding out his bow. As he did, the man saw that his weapon would serve little purpose. He was not going to be attacking mortals. Before him were 3 goddesses. Immediately, Paris bowed his head. "I'm sorry, I didn't know it was you." Paris dared to glance up at one. From the sculptures, he recognized her as the queen of gods, Hera. The goddess of wisdom and warfare was beside her. Next to her was the goddess of love. Paris found himself rendered speechless, and he wrung his hands nervously. Can I help you?" he asked. Then his eyes widened. "Not that I'm assuming immortals will ever need the help of a mortal. You took me by surprise." Aphrodite smiled. "I'm sure it was a surprise, but there is a way for you to help." "Really?" The goddess gestured to herself and her comrades. "We'd like for you to choose who's the most beautiful." Paris's mouth went dry. "Me? You want me to decide that?" Athena crossed her arms. "Personally, I'd like to work on combat training, but Father thinks this would be a nice chance to bond with one another." Of course, when I suggested we all weave a quilt, no one wanted to listen to that. "You know I'm not a good weaver," Aphrodite said, frowning. "Because you never practice." The goddess of love started to argue, but Hera raised a hand to each of the immortals. She turned her attention back to the man. "My husband takes a lot of pride in looks. To him, this would be fun. So if you'd indulge us, this shouldn't take long, and I'm sure we can find a much better way to spend time together." She bent down, handing a golden apple to the mortal. He looked at it unsurely. "Why'd you give this to me?" "You're supposed to give the apple to whoever you think is most beautiful." "Will I be punished by whoever loses?" The queen got quiet, then shook her head. "No, I don't think that'll happen." Paris could not help still feeling anxious. He looked at all of the immortals. In their own way, each was beautiful. "I don't know," he admitted. "You're all really pretty. Can you hold the apple as a team? There doesn't have to be a winner." "We already tried that," Aphrodite stated. Zeus wouldn't stop complaining. "Can I ask why I was chosen to pick?" "Because you're fair. Last week, you gave Ares a golden crown for winning a contest against your prized bull. He loves it, by the way." "He really does," Athena added, nodding. "I've seen him try to sneak and wear it under his helmet." Paris immensely regretted having given the god that crown. The next time he saw a bull acting strange, he would assume it was also an Olympian and evacuate the area. Tapping his fingers against the apple, Paris tried to think. It began taking a while. "Maybe if we offer something in return," Hera suggested. Athena glanced at her skeptically. "Are you trying to bribe him?" "I don't need to bribe him to win." "Oh, you don't, do you?" Aphrodite asked, brow raised. "I didn't mean it that way." "What way did you mean it?" Athena sighed heavily and looked at Paris. "I think the goal is for this to end as quickly as possible." "Which is why my idea would work," Hera stated. "For instance, I could give control of Europe and Asia if I'm chosen. Paris belongs in Europe. It just sounds right. The other immortals regarded her in shock. How are you giving away Europe and Asia? Aphrodite inquired. Do you even have power over those areas? I'm a goddess. If I tell the rulers to give the land to him, they'll listen. Cheater. I'm simply resourceful, dear. Aphrodite frowned, and Athena started pulling out a spear. Paris's face paled as his life flashed before his eyes. To her surprise, his mortality was not proven at that moment. Athena made the weapon shrink, then handed it to him. I'm curious who can produce the best gift, she said. This is finally becoming interesting. If I pick you, you'll give me a spear. It's meant to represent what you'll have. The goddess pointed at her head. If you pick me, I'll give you wisdom, skill in battle, and the abilities of my greatest warriors. How's that fair? Hera asked, face turning to a pout. You just offered lands full of mortals for him to reign over, Athena reminded her. I think my gift is much more responsible. He'll be wise. He could be a fool. You try to put a fool in charge of Asia and Europe, Hera. I'm sure he's competent enough. Yeah, I'm really competent, the mortal chimed in. Aphrodite shook her head. No, he's probably not. We asked him a simple question days ago and he still hasn't answered. She started to smile. I know. My gift would be the best. What is it? The other immortals asked. If you pick me, Paris, I'll give you the most beautiful woman of your generation. Paris's eyes filled with wonder. Do you mean, yes, Helen of Sparta, the Helen of Sparta? She could be your wife. She would become Helen of Troy. That has a nice ring to it. Hera opened her mouth to speak, then frowned in confusion. Isn't she married? So what do you say, Paris? Deal. Aphrodite's the prettiest. The prince happily handed over the apple to the goddess. 10 years later, this same mortal was sitting in his home with his hands over his head. So what happened next? One of his comrades asked. I found out what Hera was trying to say. Apparently, Helen was married. It made for an awkward introduction. Her father had arranged for this king to be her husband and was really mad with the idea that I'd take his place. He got all the suitors together. Then there was a war. The other men at the table sighed unhappily. Well, I think we can safely say that was an unfortunate consequence. What happened to you? For me, the beginning was the same as you said, but everything changed when they started offering gifts. In the past, the mortal stood, looking at the apple and the three goddesses. Helen really was beautiful, but she was not quite his type. He was confident in his skills as a fighter as well, so that just left one gift to truly please his ears. Paris grinned and handed the apple to the queen. Hera, you are the most beautiful. Can I have Europe and Asia now? Smiling, the queen accepted the apple. Of course you can. Athena rubbed the bridge of her nose. This is a bad idea. It'll be fine. Aphrodite watched the mortals do a victory dance. Should I tell Ares to start getting ready for a battle? Yes, the war goddess answered. No, Hera protested. Didn't you hear me? It'll be fine. Have some faith. The immortals glanced at one another doubtfully. Paris tried to not let that discourage him as he ran off to share the good news. I'm king of Europe and Asia, he declared, as loudly as his lungs permitted. Shut up! Paris's grin fell, and he frowned at the home from which the yell had come. Hey! That's no way to talk to your king. I'm not European or Asian. Paris was about to argue, then recalled that the other individual was correct. He huffed, pointing his nose high to the sky. Fine, I'll go there. Who's going with me? The resulting silence was deemed very disrespectful. Paris huffed again and went to his home. He packed all his belongings before hauling them to the docks. Then he loaded the ship and made his way to his new kingdom. No immortal could have walked with greater arrogance than Paris of Troy as he disembarked. His head was nearly large enough to compete with Mount Olympus. He found a grand palace and planned to enter. Some guards stopped him. Who are you? You're a king. All right, another madman. Let's take him to the dungeon. They started to reach for Paris, but he pulled back. No, I'm being serious. We know, buddy. That's why we're taking you. I mean, I'm not delusional. I really am the king. Ask Hera. Hera, queen of the gods, I beseech you. Instantly, the goddess appeared. The guards' eyes bulged and they bowed. Hera took in the sight, then assumed what had transpired. Paris is your new king. If anyone doubts that, they doubt me. The queen's gaze became a warning. And none of you should dare to doubt me. She vanished without another word as a wide smile spread over Paris's face. Told you, he taunted. Reluctantly, the guards moved aside. They bowed their heads again and let him pass. Paris's grin was not as wide in the Trojan home as he sat with the others back in the present. So what happened after that? I told the leaders the same thing, and they accepted I was in charge. Why do you look so terrible then? Paris grumbled. Because I didn't know how to be a king. Did you know there's a lot involved in it? Yes, the others answered. Well, where were you two when I was ruling? He asked, annoyed. I accidentally violated several treaties, disrespected Asian and European customs, and executed the only person who was willing to give me good advice. All in the first week. The people hated me. They kept rising up, gathering more followers. Then there was a war. The others groaned in frustration. Two of them leaned back in their seats and looked at the last one. Your turn. How'd it go with you? This version of Paris appeared thoughtful. Unfortunately, I can't say it went much better. Like before, it began the same, but everything changed when I had to make my decision. The Paris of the past felt his mind racing as he looked at the goddesses. There was no winning. If he chose Aphrodite, he'd have to end his life as a bachelor, and he was not prepared to rule over so many kingdoms. Therefore, that left one option. The mortal bowed his head again. Great Athena, he said, I will give this apple to you. The goddess appeared happy with this outcome. Aphrodite crossed her arms, and Hera seemed mostly unfazed. Very wise choice, Athena complimented. She placed her hand on the mortal's head. He closed his eyes, and when he reopened them, he felt different. It was like everything made so much more sense. Immediately, he was struck with a feeling of dread. I was a fool, he realized. You were the only goddess who would not have been offended by losing. Now, you're the only goddess I did in anger. Paris felt worse as his newly enhanced brain reminded him of his previous ignorance. Why had he done this? Why could he not have had any wisdom before the gift? I suppose books and scholars can keep you company since you won't be married, Aphrodite commented, gaze harsh. I don't like people who hate love. Now, don't be a sore loser, Hera stated. That seems hypocritical of you to say. How so? Your eye has been twitching ever since you gave Athena that apple. Hera put a hand over her left eye. Well, I'm the queen of the gods, and you're the goddess of love. How could we lose to the goddess of wisdom? Intelligence is very attractive, Athena mentioned. Why do you even need to be pretty? Aphrodite asked. You never date. Beauty can be enjoyed alone. It doesn't have to be for someone else. Easy for you to say. You've got so many domains to be in charge of you probably wouldn't have time anyway. Hera frowned at the apple in her stepdaughter's hands. What's everyone going to think when they find out we lost? I thought we agreed that we didn't care about this. Of course we care. I think this might be an overreaction. You wouldn't have said that if you lost, Aphrodite accused. Seeing that this was starting to get tense, Paris tried to back away. Hera caught him before he could. He yelped as he was lifted into the air by the head. You're the one who did this, she stated, eyes narrowed. Hera? We also said that we wouldn't punish Paris for his decision, Athena reminded her. I'm the queen. I can change my mind. Yeah, she can change her mind, Aphrodite agreed, grinning. Paris, you're going to pay for what you said. The mortal's eyes widened in terror. Before he could say anything, the goddess of love walked away from the group. Where are you going now? Athena asked, exasperated. To get Ares, I'm going to have him help me fight these rude Trojans. He won't be happy when he hears that Paris called his girlfriend ugly. I never said that, Paris called after her. Sorry, can't hear you over the sound of his furious growling. The immortal vanished, leaving the man with Hera and Athena. He pleadingly looked at the younger goddess. Help me, he mouthed. I'll try, she promised. Ugh, Hera muttered. I didn't expect her to do that. This little fool shouldn't die for his mistake. He actually isn't a fool anymore. Athena stopped talking with Hera glared at her. Are we going to keep him alive? The war goddess inquired. We probably should. I suppose that this will end in some bonding after all. If this was your father's plan all along, I'm never going to let him hear the end of it. In Troy, an older Paris's forehead was pressed against the table. They kept their word to help. Aphrodite and Ares came with a Spartan army. Then there was a war, they all said in unison. Simultaneously, the trio grunted, frustrated. How did this happen? One of them asked. We went through a loud effort to test out all the possibilities of that awful apple gifting task. How did we mess up in every timeline? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's like we're cursed. The Parises sat in miserable silence. Slowly, they started sitting more upright. There was someone else approaching. Their eyes widened when they saw a fourth man. Who are you? Another Paris, he answered plainly. Can't you tell? We can, but why are you here? I thought we agreed to just try out 3 timelines. There were only 3 goddesses. A different Paris gasped at the newcomer. Was another goddess involved for you? Was it Artemis? No, there wasn't another goddess. Then what did you do? Come to think of it, why aren't you limping? He still looks young, too. What did you do? I had a pretty nice time, the fourth Paris admitted. The man sat down with the others. He grinned broadly at them and hit his hand against the table in excitement. It was great, guys. So, you know that apple? Yes, they all exclaimed. Well, I took it and turned it into an apple cake. The trio of Parises gawked at him. And then what? One asked. What do you mean? What happened afterwards? He inquired, angered. Did they laugh? Did they get furious? The second Paris asked. Was there a war? Inquired the third. A war? Not at all. They obviously couldn't eat it since it was a golden apple, but they thought the cinnamon was sweet. I wound up making another apple cake that we all shared. When we were done eating, I got a head pat from each of them. Then they agreed that the real winner is whoever sees beauty in the small moments you share with friends and family. Even Zeus was moved. Isn't that great? The man's bright smile started to fade. Why are you 3 drawing out knives? Shocked, he started to stand and run away from the group. They relentlessly chased him. No one quite knew why there were 4 Parises running around Troy. Legends say that the archer, Philoctetes, saw the strange display and killed them, so they were all distracted. As part of the funeral, apples were banned from being served.